My view is both Trump and Harris will likely add to reckless deficit spending, as neither one of them can control government spending, risking tough Federal Reserve decisions with more money printing, less economic growth, and therefore higher inflation. Hello, welcome back to another episode of This Week's Economy. I'm your host, Dr. Vance Ginn, and you're listening to episode 71, where this is every Friday we dive into the most pressing economic issues of the week. Today, we have a lineup that touches on everything from inflation and taxes to the economic dynamics of Texas and so much more. So let's jump right on in. So number one, Trump and Harris on inflation. The news says that former President Donald Trump and current Vice President Kamala Harris have promised to tackle inflation if elected. However, many of their proposed policies, which could create or increase the budget deficit and hinder supply of the economy, would exacerbate the issues. Critics argue that blaming current economic woes solely on President Biden ignores supply chain disruptions that began during the pandemic under Trump's administration. My view is both Trump and Harris will likely add to reckless deficit spending, as neither one of them can control government spending, risking tough Federal Reserve decisions with more money printing, less economic growth, and therefore higher inflation. While tariffs, which both of them have seemed to want to increase on Americans, aim to protect U.S. industries, they often lead to higher consumer prices. Trump's tariffs were misguided back in the day, and Biden's continuing these policies only compounds the issue. Removing these tariffs would ease costs and help with some of the inflationary burdens that are out there. Expanding Trump-era tax cuts could benefit American households, especially with federal spending restraint that closes down the deficit spending. However, failing to extend these tax cuts could result in significant middle-class tax hikes, as noted by Dave Trabert over at the Kansas Policy Institute, from looking at a number of economic policies issues that are out there. Furthermore, regulations, budget deficits, and other restrictive policies under the Biden administration and possibly under Kamala's are harming the economy. Progressive policies might further deteriorate economic conditions. The best path forward involves embracing free trade and pro-growth policies, including cutting government spending, taxes, regulation, and excessive money printing to strengthen the economy and control inflation. Number two, Austin ranks 15th in quality of life study. The news says that Austin, Texas ranks 15th globally in a new quality of life study by Numbeo, the highest of any U.S. city, while Dallas ranks 28th, San Antonio 44th, and Houston 56th. So key cities in Texas are where they're ranking the highest in many cities that are out there. My view, Texas cities outperform many others in the United States due to the state's vibrant, attractive environment, thanks to its pro-growth policies, absence of personal income tax, sustainable budgeting, and limited regulations. Texas is a business hotspot. The latest Bureau of Labor Statistics report shows Texas leading in job gains with 267,400 new jobs added over the past year. This makes the state an ideal place for abundant job opportunities and entrepreneurial activity. Emphasizing market-driven solutions is essential for Texas to overcome challenges and maintain its status as an ideal place to live, work, and raise a family. In my recent piece, I highlighted the high-tax state exodus from states like Kansas and to those with lower taxes like Texas, attracting businesses and residents and contributing to their improving economic growth and quality of life. Don't miss that piece. I'll have it up in my show notes page. Number three, SpaceX moves to Texas. The news says that Elon Musk plans to move his headquarters of SpaceX and X to Texas, highlighting the state's attractiveness to businesses and newcomers. My view, Texas continues to attract people and businesses, including major companies like SpaceX and even X. To accommodate this influx, infrastructure improvements are necessary to meet growing energy demands. Texas should refine energy strategies, focusing on market-driven solutions, not top-down government approaches, including expanding nuclear power, eliminating subsidies to energy companies, and ensuring a level playing field. Reducing government involvement and promoting market activity will bolster Texas infrastructure, maintaining its status as a beacon of prosperity and freedom. This influx is also a part of a broader trend where businesses and individuals move to states with more favorable economic policies, as I noted in my recent piece talking about this high tax exodus from many states. Number 4, tax on tips. The news says that New York Times was reporting on Trump's proposal to exempt tips from federal taxes, income taxes, and payroll taxings, calling it, quote, improvisational economic policymaking, end quote. Senator Ted Cruz of Texas has introduced similar legislation with the No Tax on Tips Act. My view, exempting tips does not address the root cause of economic issues like government spending and could exacerbate the problem by significantly reducing federal revenues. This kind of policy does not solve the underlying issues and can create more problems by reducing federal revenue without addressing the overspending problem. In my recent piece at The Hill, I discuss how high taxes and inflation impact all American households and why more comprehensive tax cuts, similar to those implemented during the Trump administration, and even more so by getting rid of a lot of tax credits and exemptions, would be more beneficial for all households instead of picking winners and losers. All American workers are affected by high taxes and inflation, so addressing these issues holistically is essential to help Americans prosper. Instead of focusing on tips, expanding Trump-era tax cuts would benefit all American households. Congress must address the fiscal crisis and inflation through spending cuts instead of trying to pick winners and losers of tipped workers versus non-tipped workers. Don't miss my piece in The Hill. And then number 5, failure of the Kids Online Safety Act, also known as KOSA. The news says that the Kids Online Safety Act has faced criticism for empowering politicians and bureaucrats over parents rather than protecting children as intended. My view, despite its good intentions, KOSA has significant flaws that make it more harmful than beneficial. By giving more power to politicians and bureaucrats, the act undermines the authority of parents who are best positioned to make decisions for their children. This top-down approach often leads to overreach and can stifle the freedom and responsibility of families. In my recent work, I highlighted how this legislation risks imposing blanket solutions that do not consider individual family needs or circumstances. Moreover, KOSA could lead to increased surveillance and censorship by government, infringing on privacy and free speech. Instead of such heavy-handed, top-down regulation government approaches, we should focus on empowering parents with the tools and information they need to guide their children's online activity effectively. As I discussed further, KOSA risks centralizing control over children's online safety in the hands of the government, potentially leading to unintended consequences that could harm more than help. It's just a bad approach overall. Number 6, the economic folly of a carbon tax. And the news is saying a renewed push for implementing a carbon tax to combat climate change exists. My view, a carbon tax is economically flawed and potentially harmful despite its intentions to reduce carbon emissions. In my recent article at the American Institute for Economic Research, I discuss how such tax increases the cost of energy, which in turn raises prices across the board from manufacturing to transportation to basic consumer goods. This tax disproportionately affects lower and middle-income families who spend more on energy-related expenses. Furthermore, the carbon tax can hinder economic growth by increasing operational costs for businesses, leading to higher consumer prices and potentially reducing American industry's competitiveness on the global stage. Instead of a carbon tax, market-driven solutions and innovations and technological advancements offer a more effective and less costly damaging path to reducing carbon emissions if they're needed to be reduced at all, which I really don't think that they should be, because remember, they are essential for life. Regarding my media hits and events this week, I was on the Chad Hasty show talking about my piece in The Hill about the cost of exempting tips from federal taxes and what should be done instead. Don't miss that one. I was published on multiple pieces or had quotes this week at AIER, Kansas Policy Institute, The Sentinel, The Hill, and there's more to come very soon. The quote of, also, before I get to the quote of the week, the Let People Prosper Show. Don't miss episode 107 of the Let People Prosper Show with Dr. Med Tazinski. She's the managing director of the Bridwell Institute for Economic Freedom. And we talk about economic freedom and how it improves the careers of women and men. You don't want to miss that one. This was this past Monday. The upcoming Monday's episode 107 of the Let People Prosper Show is going to be with Doug Carswell, where we discuss keys to liberty and prosperity, both from his time in the British Parliament and his role with Brexit, along with his current work at the Mississippi Center for Public Policy and the tax reforms there in Mississippi. The quote of the week is by Milton Friedman, quote, "The only corporate social responsibility by a company has," let me start over there, because the only corporate social responsibility a company has is to maximize its profits, end quote. So true. We need to remember that when all this ESG and other nonsense gets thrown around. And the Bible verse of the week is Psalm 42:1. Quote, "As the deer pants for streams of water, my soul pants for you, my God." So true for me. I hope it's true for you as well. So in conclusion, thank you for joining me in episode 71 of This Week's Economy. I hope these issues help you better understand our world. Please like, subscribe, and share this episode and all the other ones that you like. For more insights, visit vanceginn.com and get a paid subscription to my Substack newsletter at vanceginn.substack.com so you receive these insights directly in your inbox and you don't miss any of it. So, at the end of the day, God bless you and let people prosper.